All right, it's time now for your stimulus update on this Wednesday, July 29th. And some big news we're following, of course, at the Federal Reserve level. Jerome Powell speaking today, and we're going to hear his remarks later this afternoon and what his guidance will be for the future of this economy. I'm hoping that Superman Jerome Powell steps in, kind of puts a smackdown on Congress. Says, get your act together. I've been warning you for months now that you've got to pass another stimulus. In fact, the Federal Reserve, board members of the Federal Reserve have been calling for a regular stimulus payment, something that might even continue through the end of the year. So we know that they're meeting today and they're going to continue to outline what they are looking for at the Federal Reserve level, which is grappling this week with the timing and scope of their next policy move. Obviously, the virus has continued to rage and is getting worse right now in Florida and other spots. The pandemic has already weakened the U.S. economy. No major changes are likely when the Fed releases a statement on Wednesday after its two-day policy meeting, expected to keep interest rates near zero. They're saying forward guidance. That's what economists are saying. So they're going to say, we want to see what it's going to look like for the rest of the year. They use this extensively after 2008-2009 recession. Economists are able to kind of figure out where they need to be over the next few months based on what guidance they have. The Fed has signaled that it's expected to keep the key short-term interest rate near zero through the end of 2022. Since then, the pandemic's threat to the economy has appeared to worsen. According to their June meeting minutes, they're saying it'll be important in the next coming months to have greater clarity about the future path of these interest rates. Some Fed watchers expect no rate increase until 2024, and they've pumped trillions of dollars into the economy, buying up these mortgage-backed securities. And of course, they are intended to lower borrowing rates. That would ensure lowering borrowing rates to remain available for households so that they continue to borrow money. You can continue to get mortgages. The banks have that liquidity. So again, the argument has been, wow, Wall Street's been doing fine. That's why in many ways it's smart to have your money in some stocks. Some companies that are long-term that aren't going anywhere. Because even in the worst of times, the Federal Reserve has stepped in with unlimited capacity and has managed to make sure that they're able to pump money into that part of the economy, and they're doing fine. And even in the best of times, the stock market is on its own and doing well. It's almost like the stock market now it could not possibly ever fail. With the Fed stepping in all the time to shore up certain sectors, it's been riding high. So why wouldn't we own some stocks at this point? Why wouldn't we have our money in at least a portion of our portfolio in stocks that are always going to be backed by the Federal Reserve? I mean, look how well Apple has done during this pandemic. Record profits. I was wondering, how well are these big companies going to do? Those are the types of companies that you should be investing in. Those companies aren't going anywhere. Even during a pandemic, Apple has done well. Google, Facebook, etc. So imagine them in good times, when we don't have a pandemic and their stores are open. All Apple stores are basically closed again, right? Or most of them. So imagine when they are open again. Their online store's doing fine. So in recent speeches and appearances, the Fed policymakers have been largely pessimistic about the economy. You have President Trump out at the podium talking about how things are great. You have the White House saying how Larry Kudlow and others saying there's green shoots popping up all over the place. Housing market's doing great, which it is. Manufacturing is coming back. It's a dubious claim at best. You're seeing all sorts of new construction projects unfolding. But what about the American consumer that's been slammed and unemployment benefits drying up and jobs not coming back and housing moratoriums being lifted so they're being evicted from their houses and people can't pay their mortgages? It's the tale of two economies. So in this chance, I think Federal Reserve Chief Jerome Powell is going to say something today. Let's watch. He's going to say something which will be a slap at Congress to get its act together. Why? Because they're an absolute mess right now. Look at this headline this morning on Politico. It's a mess. Senators right now cannot get on the same page about what they want. And Democrats are just sort of sitting back because they're still about $2 trillion apart on this whole thing. And they said, look, Republicans have brought us these little piecemeal bits and pieces of a plan. Chuck Schumer out there yesterday speaking said this has been a mess and a disaster.
We had hoped that there'd be a bill And instead, in the Senate, they've put together little pieces here and there and everywhere. It's pretty clear they don't have 51 votes in the Senate among the Republicans for a proposal. And it's frustrating because they've dithered for 3 months. We're now at various very serious cliffs that hurt lots of people. They managed to have enough money for $2 billion for the FBI headquarters that benefits Trump Hotel, and they say they have no money for food assistance.
And that's true. So this FBI building as part of the stimulus plan has been quite a sticking point. I mean, Republicans love to slam Democrats for piling pork and things inside of these bills, right? They've been slamming Nancy Pelosi on the HEROES Act because there's money in there for cannabis producers. There's money in there for illegal immigrants. There's money in there for, well, there's hazard pay. There's frontline workers. That's not in this bill from the Republicans. But they would like to slam Democrats on that, and rightly so. I think there's an absolute lot of bloat in the Democratic plan. Well, then aren't they say, people that live in glass houses don't throw stones? Well, you have this FBI building for $2 billion in the stimulus package that President Trump wants, and Republicans went along with it. When asked 2 days ago at that press conference when he was rolling this out, why there was this $2 billion FBI building as part of the stimulus package, Mitch McConnell just shrugged and said that's what the White House wants. What are you, his little, you carrying the water for the White House? You have repeatedly said you don't want these things in this package. Why are you carrying the water for the White House? And why is this FBI building so important to President Trump? Let's dissect that for a second. On the surface, it seems, wow, he just wants a new building for the FBI, right? Well, this location is cat-a-corner to a Trump hotel, okay? Well, why would you want an FBI building near a hotel? Well, the answer is to keep away competition of another hotel owner from building a hotel that would take away revenue from the Trump hotel. It took us a few days to figure out what the motivation was there, but that's what the motivation is. That if a federal building is on that corner, then there's not going to be a Marriott that opens and takes away from the Trump hotel. So that's the story. Well, good for Mitch McConnell. He stepped in and said, you know what? I don't think this is a good idea. He wants that FBI money out of the coronavirus bill after all, after facing fierce criticism. He says that I don't want non-germane items in the legislation before I send it to President Trump's desk. He said, I'm opposed to non-germane amendments, whether it's funding for the FBI building or, for example, in the House bill, whether it's a tax cut for high-income earners in blue states and other non-germane amendments in the House bill like marijuana studies or aid to illegal immigrants. So he got his little digs in to the House Democrats, but he's right. But you allowed this in the bill in the first place. So what changed? Just public criticism, I guess? They cannot get on the same page on this at all. And the timeline right now is no one's talking about trying to finish this up before July 31st, of course. Unemployment benefits have already wrapped up. And that deadline fully is July 31st for that $600 per week. So nothing's going to happen on that front, likely until early or even mid-August. Rough expectations are that if something comes together, it'll be a few weeks before they sign off on anything. Here was Senator Pat Toomey. He's a Republican. He says Republicans right now are causing the fight. It's between us. He's a Republican. He's saying we can't get on the same page.
So, this one's going to be different from previous bills in that the Republicans will be divided on this one. The other bills have passed thus far, I think unanimously in I think every case. That's not going to happen this time. We're already spending a tremendous amount of money, and that's before Speaker Pelosi gets her pounds of flesh. So this one's going to be a different kind of negotiation.
They need to get on the same page first before they can even get over to Democrats. Okay, so what are some of the major differences here? It's important to understand that the major difference right now is the $600 unemployment benefits. Democrats have drawn a line in the sand. They said, nope, it's going to stay at $600 a week. It's a non-starter. If you give us a bill that does not have unemployment benefits at $600 a week, you can take it back to grandma. Take it back home and rewrite it. It's not going to fly. So $600 a week is what Democrats want. Republicans want it slashed down to about $200 a week for 2 months. That's it. 2 months, and then transitioning to a roughly 70% of prior earnings when you're rolling that together with state assistance. So they $200 per week, and then they're going to roll it down to 70%. That adds an enormous layer of complexity on top of those state unemployment offices. They don't have the computer systems to handle this mess. They're already inundated. So Democrats are saying, just keep it where it is right now. Don't change it. The Americans need it. We need this money in order to stay afloat. And Republicans are saying no on that. And Democrats are saying also a non-starter for many states, because a lot of states are saying, what? We don't have the technology. You're hearing from a number of governors right now that said, hey, forget what Congress is saying about this. And Nancy Pelosi, as a governor, we can't handle the state unemployment system that you're going to foist on top of us right now. We can't. We don't have the technology. It's antiquated. So politically, Republicans want no part of a headline that their party cut unemployment benefits. So I think that this is likely to come back up again. I think Democrats are going to win this round. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Will Democrats win the $600 fight? I think they will. Another sticking point right now is what Democrats want is $1 trillion for funding state and local governments that are just hemorrhaging money. Well, if you listen to Senator Pat Toomey, they don't want us to be throwing any more money at this thing. He says, you have members of our own party that think that we've done plenty. We've spent too much money as it is, and we don't have any more to give. Listen to Senator Pat Toomey on where his Republican colleagues are.
I think there'll be a lot of conservatives who will say we just aren't going to go. And remember, keep in mind what we've already done. $3 trillion of spending, another $3 trillion at least of authorization for the Fed for lending. That's 30% of our entire GDP. And some of us look and see some price signals that are starting to get a little bit worrisome, right? A sustained decline in the dollar, gold setting new records, silver on a rocket ship, tip spreads widening relative to ordinary treasuries. At what point do we say there's a red light flashing here? So the idea that we're going to pile on over after the trillion that's already on the table, another, what, trillion? That's going to be really, really problematic.
Well, you know what's going to be more problematic is if the GDP declines even more, because consumer confidence right now, or consumer spending, declines even more. It's already down like 15, 17%. Remember, the U.S. economy, 70% of the U.S. economy is run by you and me spending money. At the gas station, at the grocery store, going to see a movie, buying Netflix subscriptions, etc. 70%. We've already seen a massive decline. So I just don't get it. I don't understand where their head is at on this, because you're willing to spend money to prop up certain industries. You're not willing to spend the money to prop up the biggest driver of our economy. He talks about $3 trillion being spent on the Fed for borrowing power, right? And that's why Wall Street and businesses are doing just fine, and they're continuing to plug along. People are able to get mortgages, borrowing, and money is flowing through the economy like it always has, even more so. Yet the one area of the economy that's being crushed is the American consumer. It's the American family, once again. So while you guys can sit back and dither, my favorite word of the week, while you guys can sit back and dither and talk about how you've already spent so much money, you want to see the U.S. dollar decline even more? You're about to. If you don't get your act together to get a stimulus package passed that has some real teeth to it, that U.S. dollar is going to continue to go down, and gold is going to continue to go up. Real estate's going to continue to go up as safe havens against the U.S. dollar. I'm a real estate investor, so I'm fine with that. I don't put any money in the U.S. dollar. I don't want any of my savings in the U.S. dollar, U.S. government currency. Are you crazy? No way. But Americans need to eat. And as Nancy Pelosi talks about, we have this food scarcity right now. You have families who are food insecure. They're having to, there's no extension on the SNAP program for food stamps. That's a big part of the HEROES Act. And that's not a part of what Republicans want at all. Nancy Pelosi was pretty upset about this, speaking yesterday after their meeting. They keep coming out of these meetings and they just keep getting frustrated with Republicans.
What the heck is going on?
Right now we're at a time when children are food insecure in our country. People are hungry, never thought they'd ever go to a food bank. People are being on the verge of eviction because they can't pay the rent. They've lost their jobs through no fault of their own. And again, families can't pay the rent, and they are resenting the fact that people were getting $600, which was helping to keep them out of poverty and make ends meet. Why can't we spend trillions of dollars to bolster the middle class in our country? Oh, we had this bill, we had that bill. We think we have to support our heroes, our state and local workers, healthcare workers, teachers, transit, sanitation, food supply, people who meet the needs of the American people. They're our heroes. They risk their lives to save other lives.
And guess what? According to the reporting this morning, the Washington Post, hazard pay. I see you ask this question so much. Hazard pay, frontline worker protection, bonuses for those people that are out there on the front lines. Postal employees, sanitation workers keeping us safe, grocery store employees, hospital employees right now, nurses, people that are out there doing the testing sites. Would we see hazard pay? Would we see? No. And it's looking less and less likely, according to Jeff Stein at the Washington Post, who's been doing amazing reporting on all of this. No. Among the other differences you heard Nancy Pelosi talking about, there is rental and food assistance. Democrats have made it clear that these are top priorities. Otherwise, you're going to have millions of people that are going to be homeless, folks, in the next few weeks. I don't know. There's no other way around it. People with an eviction moratorium being lifted and people needing to pay back rent, and states now saying, yes, Grover, that's right. People are going to be evicted, and it's awful. People now, states saying now you can go ahead forward with evictions again. State Supreme Courts are saying the moratorium is up, go ahead and evict people. They're going to be thrown out. So rental assistance and food assistance, they want provisions in there for, they want that specifically in the GOP proposal. It's not. Republicans don't have that in there. They do, however, have protections for businesses under liability protection. Democrats don't want it. They don't think it's necessary. They think that they've already had this OSHA Act inside of the Democratic bill, and there's no reason for it. It would also protect workers, employees, and customers that come into a restaurant or a business. Why do you have to have this in here just for businesses under the liability protection? But that's a huge red line from Mitch McConnell. Probably not going to fly. It's probably not going to fly for Democrats. But this is how far apart they are on these things, folks. I mean, you think this is going to get done anytime soon? I hate to be cynical. Education. This is another big piece. Republicans included $105 billion. That's about $5 billion more than Democrats wanted. It had $70 billion for K through 12. It had $30 billion for colleges and universities. But right now, Democrats have pushed for more than $400 billion for schools in a new bill that they rolled out just recently. And they object to tying any funds to schools bringing students back to in-person classes. So that's where the difference is here. Republicans want it tied to this funding tied to bringing people back to school. Democrats don't. Because if you see what we're seeing in Florida right now with 186 deaths in one day, now setting a new one-day death record in Florida, 6,000 deaths in Florida overall, and you want to send kids back to school, it's not just about the kids. It's about the adults who have to teach those kids. So there's a lot of disagreement on meals, transportation for schools, PPE, which is, of course, the equipment to make sure that our schools are protected and kids are protected and teachers are protected. But there are some agreements. I just want to leave you with some ray of hope. Direct payments to you. There is agreement, at least, that they've repeated what Democrats want, which is the $1,200 per month. Or, excuse me, don't take me at that, $1,200 one-time payment. And the only disagreement right now is on the dependent payment, which would be $500 under Republicans, $1,200 under Democrats. And Paycheck Protection Program, the GOP proposal includes $190 billion for that, and another $60 billion for long-term low-interest loans. Democrats are on board with that as well. But man, they are far apart. They're about $2 trillion far apart right now. It's pretty bad. $2 trillion and far apart. Negotiations between Republicans themselves have fallen apart. And you're seeing this frustration from different senators who are saying, we don't want to do anything. Ted Cruz, who doesn't really want to do anything. Others who are up for re-election, like Lindsey Graham, is facing a real fierce battle right now in South Carolina. Mitch McConnell, who's facing an election battle in Kentucky, who want to do things. But Mitch McConnell has said, look, I'll quote what Mitch McConnell is saying. He's saying, we've got members right now that are far apart. He said Republicans are in the majority in the Senate. That's a starting place. You'll have plenty of stories to cover along the way as we have these discussions back and forth across party lines and with the administration. He calls it a skinny bill, a skinny proposal. And Nancy Pelosi says, it's good that they call it skinny because that's what you get when you don't have any food to eat, Pelosi told reporters. Ouch. Scaling this bill back, it's a skinny bill. So again, today we will see Fed Chief Jerome Powell speaking. We will hear from him. Does he think a skinny bill is necessary or something robust? If we hear what he said 2 months ago or a month and a half ago, he thought what we needed to do in this next stimulus was big. President Trump said the new stimulus package a few months ago would be bigger, better than what Democrats want. It's not. It's worse. It's much less. So where is that from the White House? Where is the leadership on this? Why couldn't President Trump, instead of yelling at CNN reporters yesterday at that White House briefing, why couldn't he get up there and say, you know what, Congress, we need to pass a big stimulus. The American people demand it. Instead, he spent the time picking on Dr. Fauci, picking on a CNN reporter, Caitlin Collins. I thought she asked a pretty legitimate question. She asked him, hey, Mr. President, why did you retweet a doctor who has said that she believes that that vaccines come from aliens and there's all sorts of weird stuff that she's said, this doctor. And President Trump just walked out of the briefing. Use that podium. You have the biggest bully pulpit in the world. Get up there, show leadership and say, you know what, we need a big stimulus package. I'm going to get the leaders of the Senate over here, stop their quibbling over little details. We need to pass something big. It's not going to. It's not happening. It's not happening right now. So that's the very latest on the stimulus. Go ahead and smash that like button and subscribe to our channel if you are new here. Please also, please sign up for our free morning newsletter. Morninginvest.com is our free morning newsletter. You can sign up. It's totally free. And it lets you get the daily news delivered right to your email inbox every morning. It'll take you about 5 minutes to read it over your cup of coffee in the morning. We try to make you smile a little bit, have some humor with it. We spend a lot of time writing it. So we've got 8,000 people here right now. Can all 8,000 of you right now who are watching go and subscribe to our Morning Invest newsletter? Just go to morninginvest.com and subscribe. Again, we put a lot of work into it. We really like people to read it. It's kind of like when your child is working on something in their house a lot. They're playing with something like, Daddy, come here and see what I've been working on all day. That's kind of how I feel about our newsletter. Can you sign up for it, please? Pretty please. And also check out our Paranormal Post channel. Our kids are super excited about this other camera angle. Thank you. My little girl, she's like, Daddy, I set up another camera angle for you.
Like a Peloton, she said.
Yeah. Oh, it's like Peloton? Like taking a Peloton class? Okay. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it. Please, if you would, folks, come over, check out if you're into paranormal news, I really appreciate you coming over and signing up. Just go to our paranormal channel on YouTube. Paranormal Post is the channel, so it's youtube.com/paranormal post. We have that UFO story on the UFO wreckage that has been caught. Go sign up for that and check it out. And we're going to have another story either tonight or first thing tomorrow. A pretty remarkable story on Loch Ness, actually. My son, yeah, you excited about it, buddy?
I want to see the Loch Ness.
Yeah, you want to see Loch Ness?
I've seen it before.
I know. Well, I tell the story in the video, and then we're going to publish it, how when we were in Scotland and we came around the corner of the cliffside over Loch Ness, 2020, the year 2020 is shaping up to be one of the more sightings of Loch Ness, or what people think is the Loch Ness monster, than years and years.
The Earth is breaking down.
The Earth is breaking down. I don't know if that has much to do with it. All right, thank you guys.
I'll see if I can study.
Okay, thank you guys. Okay, I'm going to open it up for some Q&A here.
Look, can I be in Loch Ness Monster?
Yes, you can be in the Loch Ness monster.
Bye.
All right.